If you've been using tools like ChatGPT and Claude, you've probably heard about prompt engineering, the art of writing better instructions to get better results. But there's something bigger happening right now in the AI space, and that is context engineering. And this is fundamentally changing how we are building AI systems. So in this video, I'm going to be breaking down both concepts in simple terms. So what they are, when to use them, and why context engineering is becoming the real game changer. So guys, just a brief introduction if you're new to the channel. My name is Omar. I'm a cybersecurity engineer, and I have expertise in AI security and cloud security. So let's begin. What is prompt engineering? Prompt engineering is basically like writing better instructions to get a better answer from an AI. They are one-off examples that we usually use in our one-off tasks. And it's essentially like being very good at just asking questions. So just think of it like this. Imagine you're ordering at a restaurant, and instead of just saying, obviously, that I want food, for example, you're going to give a more specific order, like I want a steak and it's going to be medium rare. Substitute the rice for vegetables and put the sauce on the side. Those type of specifics is essentially what prompt engineering is. We're taking vague, ambiguous statements and making them more specific and concise. So when the AI is processing our request, it knows exactly what we want. So when it comes to AI, instead of just saying, write me an email, you're going to ask it to say, write me a professional email to my manager explaining why a project has been delayed by, let's just say, 2 days. Maintain 150 word count, like a maximum word count, and maintain a respectful tone. So these specifics and this type of, let's just say, attempt to write better things, this is what prompt engineering really is that we are actually just fixing our style. We are being concise. The structure and the specifics of information, we're utilizing a limited structure and just basically putting what we need in that structure, you know? So instead of just the problem that a lot of people have, that when it comes to, and this was very common in prompt engineering, and this is why it was such a important thing for people to actually get a grasp upon, was that people think they are talking to a human. So like when I'm talking to you, I may add extra things. I will over beautify what I'm saying. And the problem with that is what people don't know is that there's a context window. There is a limit, right? There is a token limit. There is an attention span too of these models. They don't process information the same way like you and I do. They think very differently, and they're much more limited. Even though we've seen their amazing capabilities, they are actually much more limited than you and I. And people have been misinterpreting that, and because they've been overly amazed by how well AI has actually become, they assume, wow, this is something that actually understands me. And in reality, that's not actually the case. But the key thing of when it comes to prompt engineering is that it focuses on that one interaction. The whole point of when you're using prompt engineering is, like I've mentioned already, it's for those one-off tasks. So that was prompt engineering. Now let's move on to context engineering. And this is where things actually are going to get very interesting. So context engineering essentially is about managing all the information that the AI has access to. It's not just your prompt. It will not just focus on the prompt, but it will focus on everything else that shapes how it responds. So let's just use a very brief example here. Like imagine you're directing a movie, and prompt engineering was like just giving an actor their lines and just saying, you know, go ahead and just say to me this dialogue. Context engineering is like setting up that entire scene. That's the lighting, the set design, the camera angles, the other actors, the backstory, the costumes, the mood, everything that will influence how that performance comes out or how it will actually perform. You're taking into account everything. So when we want to bring this to technical terms, the context includes your conversation history, the prompt, user preferences, system instructions, external documents, a document or any media that you may have already uploaded along with the conversation. It is basically everything that the AI has access to in terms of information and even tools. So let's actually go ahead and just focus on an actual real example, which we would probably use in AI. Imagine you have an AI assistant, right? And you're going to say to it to schedule the meeting. Prompt engineering is only going to focus on making that one request clearer. But context engineering is going to ensure that the AI is aware of what meeting you're talking about. So in what context in this, past conversations about meetings, your calendar availability, relevant emails to this topic, company policies even about this. So this is all of that information it's the context that will shape the response. It's not just that 5-word prompt. It must take into account everything. And the more it knows, the better the outcome will be. So what is actually the key difference between context engineering and prompt engineering? And the fundamental difference is actually scope and persistence. So prompt engineering is, like we said, it's about crafting that immediate single instruction. Whereas context engineering is providing all the background information, the dynamic background information, because things are changing over time and it must be aware of this, so the AI can respond effectively over time. So we could literally think about it like this. Prompt engineering is saying, how do I phrase this question? And context engineering asks, what does the AI need to know to handle this entire task? And what's interesting here is that context engineering, at least I believe, is being introduced so we can meet autonomy. There are three things that you want to look at when you want to rate intelligence when it comes to AI. We're talking about capability, generality, and autonomy. Autonomy, which is the factor I will focus on right now, it is where you are able, the more the AI can work by itself with little human interaction or to no human interaction and carry out the entire task fluidly and meet all the objectives. Once we're able to reach that, that is what we're talking about when we're talking about AGI and actual or true artificial intelligence, if you will. So why is context engineering becoming more important? So this was very interesting as I was researching this, and it's coming up a lot more often. And I see very few people talking about it. Only those who are pretty much notorious in the AI space have really been speaking about this. But in modern AI systems, your carefully crafted prompt so for prompt engineering, it may now only be 0.1% of the total context the model will now actually process. Why is this the case? Because now because AI isn't just answering single questions anymore. Now we're building agents and we're building AI models to handle entire tasks. We want it to remember past interactions with us. We want it to be able to carry out simple things, our day-to-days, in full capability, and it's always aware of what is actually going on. What's the context? So when Omar wants it to schedule a meeting, when Omar wants it to make a note of something, it's aware of the context I'm discussing. It's not that, okay, if I say to it, can you please schedule a meeting with my friend at this time, or make a note that I must go and review this type of content, it will know exactly what I'm referencing. And again, if I've made similar requests before, it will be able to make it even more effective given the context of those previous requests. Let's discuss a somewhat concrete example. So when you ask Claude or ChatGPT or whichever AI you're using to research something, it may search hundreds of web pages. It may pull out extra documents that you've uploaded before. It may reference convo history, access various tools or APIs. It may even apply system-level instructions. And your original prompt, which is maybe around 20 words, give or take, sits in an ocean of, let's just say, maybe, thousands, even millions of words of context. As one expert from Anthropic has put it, we're moving away from finding the right words for prompts to answering the broader questions. So what configuration do we need to provide to our AI models to get the desired behavior that we are looking for? So when are we going to be wanting to use prompt engineering versus context engineering? And for prompt engineering, there are a couple of things that we should know. When you're doing simple one-off tasks, or using ChatGPT or Claude for quick questions, or maybe if you're looking for a specific format or style of response, or if you're just prototyping. And when do we look to use context engineering? When we are building AI applications or agents, creating customer service bots, or if we're building something that has a multi-step workflow, developing systems that require actual memory, or simply building anything that needs to maintain consistency over time. There is one thing that I'd want to mention though, that prompt engineering is a subset of context engineering. So you do need still good prompts within your system to achieve context engineering. They essentially work hand in hand. So it's not that we must neglect one and favor the other. To actually amplify and to get the most out of context engineering, we must have concrete, perfect prompt engineering. Let's make this actually super concrete with some examples. So let's look at a customer service bot example. So we want to look at the prompt engineering approach. So we would say, for example, respond to customer complaints effectively and offer solutions. And now for the customer service bot, let's look at the context engineering approach. We're going to load the customer's entire purchase history. We're going to reference previous service tickets. We're going to include company refund policy, provide real-time inventory data. We're going to want to remember the conversation context as it evolves. So again, we don't want the attention span to spread too thin and that it starts to hallucinate, for example. We want to apply brand voice guidelines, and we want to also connect to the shipping tracking system if something were to be done from that. So if a product were to be shipped out in terms of to fulfill the customer's request or complaint. Now, if you see the difference between how we've approached this with context engineering and prompt engineering, yes, that prompt may be applied under this context. That is true, where we have all these factors. But as you can see, alone, if we isolate the two, we've looked at the prompt engineering approach as just a couple of words. Simply, we just said to it, go ahead, deal with the customer's complaint, and offer a solution. That, as this may sound good, but it does give the AI full free rein to go and come up with a solution. But with no context, you will get nowhere here. But in terms of the context engineering approach, we went ahead, we said, okay, let's maintain the context of the conversation as it evolves, as the conversation between you and the customer may go on and on, or between the customer service bot and the conversation may go on and on. We want to load the customer's previous purchase history. We want to reference previous support tickets that may be related to this. We want to invoke our company guidelines. We want to maintain a voice brand, connect to external services like the shipping tracking system. So as you can see, every piece of information that we have access to is what we want. And the more we give and the way we filter that information to take just the pieces that we want, because we don't want to also, another thing is that we don't want a bombardment of abundant amount of data, which isn't solely information. Now, data being in its raw form is just data. It's not processed, right? But when it's processed, it's information. That is the useful stuff we're looking for. That's the juicy stuff that when fed to the AI, it will perform its task perfectly. Now, why does this actually matter for you? You may be thinking, hey, I'm not actually building AI systems. I'm not looking to have multi-step workflows. But in reality, even knowing how, the concept of context engineering helps you use AI tools better. So when an AI seems to forget or it seems to hallucinate, which is actually a characteristic of the model, a lot of people seem to fall back on the concept that this is to do with my prompt, the wording was bad, I probably should use something better. When in reality, it's not actually a prompt problem. It's often a context problem, and knowing the following actually will help you use AI better. So you want to know, one, how to structure your information better when using AI, and two, understand why AI agents behave differently to the simple chatbot. So I'm sure you're all familiar with that when you have a merchant, or you've used multiple merchants, obviously, and you've gone to want to talk to a human, which a lot of us, funny enough, still prefer till now. And the first barrier to before you get to the human is actually a chatbot. And you may have seen varying merchants have different intellectual levels of chatbots, let's say. And this is a critical one, number 3. So recognize when to provide background information versus just better instructions. So in some of your use cases, the background information is much more useful, even when it comes to prompt engineering, rather than just having better instructions. So at your system level. So when you have in ChatGPT or in Claude, you have system instructions, but sometimes within the chat, it is more necessary for you to provide more information. Now, as businesses are investing more and more in AI tools and they're adopting almost everything that is AI out there, context engineering will define those that will go the long way and those that will fall short. If a business is just ingesting a specific AI tool into their ecosystem, and they're not considering context engineering, and they want it to take care of entire tasks, and they're giving it full autonomy. Remember the 3 things we talked about: capability, generality, and autonomy. And they want it to function like this. It will completely fail if they are not considering context engineering, which is why this is so important. Now let's consider the future implications. Major companies now are hiring thousands of context engineers because it's becoming now even a whole new profession to actually be able to understand how these systems work and then how to apply the context engineering aspect to it so they can go the long way. We're moving now away from an era where we're talking about let's know how to carefully craft these individual prompts to one where we need to architect entire information environments for an AI. And it's not even too far-fetched to say that perhaps maybe even in 5 years, you probably won't even be typing prompts anymore to AI. The AI will have so much information about you, about your work, about your background, what you like, what you dislike, your conversation history, that it will anticipate your needs before you even ask it. And I know that sounds very sci-fi and crazy, but this is actually where we're working towards. Let me know what questions you have on context engineering versus prompt engineering. If I've helped you understand these topics a lot better, please hit the subscribe button, as I'll be breaking down a lot more of these concepts in future videos.